It was just.
Hello, everybody. It's Stacey Gray. I'm the first senior mentor from Connecticut. Today, I'm here to talk to you about finding, engaging, and retaining sponsors. So, as we know, this could be a tricky topic and any time of year or in any year, but in 2020, it's particularly tricky. So, we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so just a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about today. And like I said, we're going to be talking about sponsors, but kind of why they're so important. So, running a successful first team can be pretty pricey. I think we all know that. Even if you're, I don't know if we have anybody here from FLL, FLL Junior, but even those can get a little pricey if you've got a competitive group of kids. So, sponsors really don't only have to supply financial support. They can support of in-kind donations, build space, mentors. Those are just a few of the things. There's really a lot of different ways that sponsors can help you. So even in 2020, there are pretty practical ways that you can go about getting sponsors. Most importantly, just like anything else, is having a process. So you want to have a clear, thought out plan for how you're going to approach, secure, engage, and then repeat the process of engaging with your sponsors. One of the worst things that you can do as a first team is have a system in place for acquiring sponsors, but have it be basically the sole responsibility of one or two students or mentors. And then, they graduate, they move on. Maybe the mentor retires from teaching or mentoring, and then they take all of that valuable information away with them. That's terrible. So what you really want to do, even if not everybody on the team collaborates on the sponsorship program, you just want to make sure that somebody else has access to those files. So one really easy way to do this is just by using Google Drive. So you can just have a sponsorship folder, give access to a couple different mentors, a couple different people. If somebody quits anything, they can go in and access who the sponsors are, how much they gave, who the contact person is at the corporation, and all of that information. So in an ideal world, if your sponsorship mentor is leaving, you'll be able to have like a nice, wonderful training session and go over everything. But that's not always the case. And if there's just a plan in place for how to pick up the ball, if it's dropped, and carry on, that's perfect. So just make sure there's a process. It's really, really important. The entire sustainability of your team comes down to maintaining sponsor relationships and not having to go out and find all new ones every year. So this process is one that can help you do that. As you'll see, we have the plan, approach, secure. So obviously that's when we all celebrate. Engage. So that's just making sure that you follow through on all the wonderful things that were promised as part of your sponsorship package. And then how to make sure that the next year there's a nice smooth transition and that you don't lose any sponsors. So we start with creating a sponsorship package. So I was honestly so surprised the first time that I found out that not all teams have sponsorship packages. So it could just be because I'm non-technical or my line of work. I don't know, but I love packages and creating nice graphics and, introducing yourself to people. And a sponsorship package is essentially a resume for your team. So you don't want to ever just be calling up a place and saying, hey, do you want to sponsor our team? We do this, this, and that, and we're great. And then I say, sure, we'll send you some money. How much do you want? And, that's just not ideal. You want to have a very well thought out package to ensure that you're getting the message of your team out there, and you're also conveying what your needs are and if there's different opportunities. So your sponsorship package should have different components. You want to have your cover letter. You want to have your sponsorship levels clearly thought out. Your sponsorship form, which if you're sending a hard copy in the mail, you want to make sure to have a return envelope. I just think that's a nice thing to do. Especially nowadays, but I would say always, you should offer an online payment option. At my company and my day job, I am the person who receives all sponsorship requests. So I'm the business development manager. If any team or organization is requesting money from my company, it comes to me. Um, I look at them all and I kind of anticipate if this is something we are able to do, if there's a future in it for us. We like to build relationships with organizations, so we don't want to just do a once a year thing. Um, but and I'm just being transparent about this. If I just receive a package and it's got a form and it doesn't have a return envelope, and it doesn't give me an online payment option, I'll get around to it eventually if it's something that we want to support, but it's going to end up in my to-do list. It's going to end up in a box waiting for me to get to it. So if it said, go visit www.donatemoney to donate to us, I'm probably going to do it right away if it's something we want to do. So offering an online payment option has always been a great thing to do. Nowadays, I think it's even more important when companies might be running into hiccups with different departments working virtually, um, getting checks cut and things like that. It's just simpler. Plus, we're a technology-based organization. If you can pay things online, do it. Um, a couple of things to take note of. I included some samples here that are just my favorite. I'm really big on graphics and how things look in messaging. So these are a couple of ones that stood out to me that I like. You don't have to make them be this wonderful. Well, I think they're wonderful, but you don't have to. They don't have to be like that. But the point is, you want to stand out. So you don't want to have any typos. You want to have things typed out nicely, and just look nice. If you want to go all out like this, great. If not, just try to look as good as possible. You want to stand out. Like I said, it's like a resume. You want to have modern and creative graphics. For inspiration, I go to Pinterest. I go to Pinterest for inspiration on everything. So, so that would be my recommendation. And if you're not fantastic, if you don't have a lot of experience in creating graphics and creating nice templates and proposals, you can use Canva, Adobe Spark, and stock photos. Those are just a couple of the ones that I use. Canva has a free version that I think you'd be able to do it on. But on any of those, if you just go in and you can pick a template and then make some changes, I guarantee this middle package here was made from a template. So whoever made that probably took about 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes to just go in and update it and make it suitable to their needs. So you can really make yourself look very professional and really stand out with not a ton of effort or not as much as you would think. Okay. You want to be engaging and creative. So remember what I said, that there's a lot of competition out there when it comes to what businesses are being approached with, what they want to support. So you really want to make sure that you stand out above basketball teams, PTOs, any organization that's looking for money. And while it would be great if there was endless funds for everybody, there's not. So it is a competition, and you want to get to them first, and you want them to believe in you and that you're making the biggest impact and that you're going to have a mutual relationship where they're getting something out of what they're giving to you. So some things that you can ask for, we went over this in the beginning, is some monetary donations, registration fees, tools, machines, build space, mentor support. And you can be really creative in what you're going to give. So if you wanted to, a lot of the common ones I think everybody knows are putting the logo on your website, doing logo on a robot, social media mentions, having the logo on your shirt, all different things like that. And there's a lot of really creative things that you can do. Um, Engaging with companies on social media is huge. So obviously, if you have a sponsor that's maybe a pizza restaurant in your town and they aren't really on Instagram, or they have 2 followers, they clearly don't really value the social media aspects. So maybe they will benefit more greatly from something different, like a robot demo at their restaurant on a particular night. Obviously, that probably wouldn't happen this year, or maybe a certificate for the restaurant to hang on the wall. So you can customize these things, and you can figure out what it is that's most important to who you're reaching out to, and tailor that, um, and really figure out what each of you has to gain from one another. Some tips for things to make sure that you do is to introduce yourself and your team. Be honest about your team's needs and what donations will be used for. Talk about community outreach projects or efforts that your team supports. This is something that I think might get overlooked a lot. So it's easy to say, we're a FIRST Robotics team. If you're FRC, it's easy to say, we're a FIRST Robotics team and we're competing and we have to pay X amount in registration fees. And then we have to buy shirts and we have to travel. We have to build this robot that's going to cost a lot of money. So can you help us? And that's a wonderful cause. And a lot of people will be completely happy to donate to that. But what could be more impactful and what could really set you apart from, say, a sports team that's looking for help is if you were to say, we also run 8 FLL programs and 3 FLL junior teams, and we run a STEM-based program at our local library. Because then they're seeing that they're not just supporting a team of high school students, but they're supporting a whole program, a whole STEM-based program in their town. And obviously that's pretty impactful. And they'll see that not only are you competing as a team, but you're giving back to the community and they're going to have more bang for their bucks, so to speak. Include clear and easy communication methods. So if they have questions or they just want to give you money or whatever, they need to be able to know how to get in touch with you. And offer to do a phone or video call meeting to answer questions. I would say this has always been something you should do. I think that nowadays, more people that maybe didn't use Zoom or didn't use video calls in the past have become more accustomed to it. And while some people are getting really tired of it and dislike it, there's a lot of people out there that are easier to reach that way. So it's a good way to just offer if you wanted to give them some time to answer questions. This is some sponsorship tiers. So I actually threw this together in about 5 minutes. So I wouldn't suggest necessarily using this, although you're free to if you want. But I just put this together just to kind of show how easy it is to make a sponsorship tier package. So we have bronze, silver, gold, platinum levels, and it kind of details what is being given for each package. What I didn't include on here was dollar amounts because that's very particular, very specific to different teams, different areas. So I just didn't want to do that because that's kind of a personal thing of what you're gonna offer. Also, to be honest, if I had put that up there, I would have wasted another 45 minutes talking about where dollar amounts should be cut, and that's a whole nother presentation. So if you have any questions about that, my email is at the end, or we can talk about it in the questions, but it really gets me going. So one thing that I believe is imperative is offering them a customizable sponsorship plan. So somebody might look at your plan and your little table and see prices that we would have listed there and say, geez, that's too much money for me, but I want to support them. Or wow, I'd really like to give them more money than they offer here, which that does happen. Or they might say, I don't want to give this money, but I want to give XYZ. You want them to be able to talk to you about that. You don't want them to just say, we don't fit in any of these boxes. None of these things are things that we really want to do. So we'll put this aside and not do it. So offer them a way to contact you and talk about a customized plan. And that can go back to where you set up a Zoom and talk to them and see what they have in mind, or if you have something in mind. But it's just a good thing to do. So you don't just lose people that don't feel like they belong in one of these boxes. Finding sponsors. So this is, this is where it gets interesting. Not that I haven't been interesting for the past 15 minutes. So where to look? You're going to look everywhere. And when I say that you're going to ask every business you possibly can, that's what you need to do. So you want to approach small local businesses like restaurants, hardware stores, manufacturers. Those are the ones that are relevant to you. But you can also approach ones that aren't relevant to you. You can approach dog groomers, hair salons, automotive stores, anything. Go with the larger corporations too. So not only small businesses, but approach big companies. They have different things to offer. They don't have to be obvious. So it doesn't have to be a tech company or an aerospace company. It can be a large company that does something completely different. That's fine. Do not limit yourself to just your own town or state. Just last year on my team, actually, there was a girl that asked if she could approach a sponsor that was on the other side of the country, and she had a family friend there, and we said sure, and they sponsored at a really nice amount. So don't limit yourself to just your town or state, because if companies understand that they're going to be getting local, national, or international visibility through your team, there's no reason that they wouldn't support a team in another location. Parent and mentor companies, make sure to have all parents and mentors on the team approach their employers with your sponsor package if they're able to. Not all connections are obvious, and sponsorship isn't only about money. So you should think about the everyday things that your team needs. There's a lot of things that go into running a successful first team, whether it's FLL, FLL Junior, FRC, or FTC. You need somewhere to work from. I mean, I know this isn't a need, but you can have even places that supply snacks to your shop or build space or for travel. Um, if there's a local screen printer that can provide T-shirts at a discounted rate or for free, that's a sponsorship opportunity. A pizza shop that provides meals during build season or on those long weekend build days, that's a great opportunity. Um, a manufacturing company that might be able to offer some machining parts or machining, training and machining. There's literally opportunities everywhere. All it really takes is sitting down and thinking about what you need and what other people can help you get. So even if it's not money, it doesn't mean that it's not saving you money or saving you time or teaching your students something. So get creative. This is the pandemic friendly approach. And this is where it gets a little bit more. It's easy if it's a sponsor that you've had a relationship with and you're maintaining that relationship with. So you want to know your audience. You want to know just a couple of things, and none of these are really make or break it, except the last one. But just some things to know. And once you've been doing your sponsorship program for a little bit, maybe you can put notes in that Google Drive that we talked about earlier, or maybe it will help you if you want to customize a plan for them. But you want to know if they sponsor other teams or groups. Maybe you find out that they sponsor a whole bunch of baseball teams or American Heart Association walks, things like that. So you can kind of see where their efforts are and where their community outreach efforts are focused on. That leads to knowing if their mission is aligned with FIRST and your team mission. Obviously, you don't really want a sponsor that is not a logo that you're proud to put on your robot. You don't want anything that's questionable. Common sense. Do they have a sponsor donation limit? This is really just important if it's one of those things where they only will donate like every other year, or if you know for a fact that they've already hit their limit for the year. Obviously, most companies do have a dollar amount that is what they will hit. Do you have any employee connections? It's a fantastic job to find out if anybody on your team knows somebody that works there and can tell you if if there's a certain person you should reach out to at the company. So that's always good to ask. If it's a big one, you don't have to ask for all of them. What might entice them to be, or what might entice them or be of most value to them? So if you have a company in mind and you know that they are very into something, whether it might be STEM education or science programs for youth, and you have FLL teams, you really want to drive that point home for them. And lastly, and this is, again, the only one that would really make a difference, is if the current pandemic has affected their business. So we all know, sadly, that for some businesses, things have really taken a turn for the worse for them right now. And for some businesses, they're thriving. So there's a couple of different scenarios to consider. What we're seeing and hearing a lot of is that a lot of the larger corporations have not pulled back on funding, don't really have plans to, but smaller companies have been hit a little bit differently, a little harder. So just know who your sponsors are and where they might be at. And this down here is just about corporate sponsors versus local shops. They have different budgets. They have different things that they might be able to offer. Larger corporations also, you should be prepared that if you submit a sponsor request form, there's a high likelihood that you will get back something telling you that, they're interested in helping out your cause, but you should visit this portal and fill out their form. So there's a sponsor request form. In that case, don't wing it. Don't just go in and type, whatever you're thinking. Just use your bits and pieces from your sponsorship package to fill out the form to the best of your ability, and should be fine. And know your message. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding, sort of. Um, so obviously, organizations, companies know why you're asking for the money, and that's that you need it. So don't be bashful about it. We need money to keep on doing the stuff that we're doing, and it's really cool stuff. And there's a lot of benefits to them helping us. Don't be bashful. Make sure to show the competitive benefits that we've already gone over a little bit. That what first teams have to offer versus other teams and other things that might be looking for money. So the focus on STEM, that's a huge thing. The fact that first programs and first teams are really supporting the future leaders of tomorrow and really supporting STEM initiatives in towns. The fact that First, as an organization, has a plan in place for supporting a remote season if things don't get better, or if things change, what have you. A lot of organizations and a lot of groups aren't able to do that. It's just okay. Well, it's been canceled, so we're not going to be able to do anything. In that case, a sponsorship goes to having very little value. So the fact that we could say, okay, even if our season isn't what it usually looks like, it's still going to look like something. So we'll be able to work it out with you. That's a big selling point right now. Um, you know, uh, there's a lot of focus on everything being uncertain, but if the little bits of certainty that you can provide are very valuable. For some companies, the fact that they are supporting the future workforce and that there's a potential maybe for internships with your students in the future, that could be a selling point. The visibility, so how many people in the tech industry will have eyes on their logo. That's a big deal. Now it's go time. So you have your sponsorship package and your tiers, and you've pinpointed who you're going to go after, and now you're ready. So let's do this. So the most common approaches, these are all obvious. Um, I would I know that there still are people that do go out and walk into places and hand them sponsorship forms, and I do know that there is a lot of value in having students go out there and hand over a sponsorship package to somebody. Um, and I think that we should always do that when available, when that's an option. Considering that this year that might not be an option because maybe a company is, I mean, it really depends on where you are in the world right now, but maybe a company is working completely remote. I mean, I haven't been in my office since March, and I'm still getting sponsor requests from people. Um, so they wouldn't get me if they wouldn't get me if they walked in there, because I can tell you that if they have, none of my coworkers have sent me a single sponsorship package that came physically through the door. So you want to call, email, send it in mail if you want. I would recommend calling and emailing. If there's sponsorship forms online, those are great to fill out too. And always follow up afterwards. So if you've sent an email, a good thing to do, and this is always, I think, just best practice for when you're contacting a company about anything and you don't know if you've got the right person, is once you've got something, even if it's maybe you're reaching out to a generic like info@blank.com, ask. Just introduce yourself, tell them what you're talking about, and before you go into too much detail, say, I'm not sure if I'm asking the right person. Can you maybe steer me in the right direction? Um, and that should get you somewhere. An important thing to do is keep a list of the places that you've contacted and when you've contacted them and how you contacted them. So I know that you're probably sick of all the lists that I'm telling you to keep, but it goes back to the plan and it's important. So if you've got your Google Drive folder and you can say, these are all the companies we reached out to. This is a list of 30 something companies, and this is the date that we reached out to them, and we reached out to them by email. And then when you hear back from them, whether it's a yes or no, have another column for that, for what they said. And then have another column for if you followed up with them, and then have another column for when they've sent in their money. Um, it's all part of the process. And while it might seem like a lot of work at the time, you don't want to have to scramble for sponsors next year because you don't remember who you got money from. You don't remember who your contact was at the place that you got money from, or even worse, you got money and you didn't follow through. So we'll get to that. Now we're going to celebrate the success because it's inevitable. There might be failures, but you're going to get some success, and then eventually this will happen. Um, so this can obviously take a lot of tries. Don't get discouraged, especially right now. I don't think you should ever get discouraged, but especially right now. So just keep going at it and keep hammering away. And like I said in the beginning, ask every company out there. Um, Make sure that you're asking everybody that you can because, as we all know, the more people that you ask, eventually someone's going to say yes. And engaging. So now it's time to make that company your BFF. Sponsor relationships are a two-way street, so you don't want to just take the money and run. What you have to do is take the money and go back to your Google Drive folder and record all of the information, how much money you got, and what the amount of money that they gave gets them in return based upon your tier package. It's very easy in the heat of build season and competition season to get the money, do the things you need to do with it, and then not do anything. So there's some things that you need to make sure to do to be consistent, to provide relevant value to your sponsors and to really build a relationship so that when you ask them for money for next season, you don't feel bad asking for it because you know that you gave them everything that you promised and that they appreciated it. So that all comes down to follow through. You want to make sure your sponsors receive everything. Some best practices to make it a little bit easier for you is to maintain strict timelines and deadlines. Don't make them public. You don't need to let them know when things are going to be happening, but just have it on your spreadsheet or know. Say, okay, before our first competition, we're going to have all the logos on the robot, or before we order our shirts, we're going to have all of just like that. One thing that's important is when your sponsors sign up with you and they give you your money, make sure that you get their logo files right away and store them in that Google Drive folder so that you have them. So that when it's time to order the logos for your robot or make them, or for your t-shirts, you don't have to hunt them all down and find them. So you have them all. Keep that in your folder. So you ask them for them right away. Order and print your logos for your robot as soon as possible. So I get that it's hard, and I get you have to wait until the robot is completed. Know how much space you're working with them, but as the second that you know where the logos are going, um, and then when you've got your robot and it's got its fancy logos on it and you've got your new t-shirts, take pictures and not only post those pictures on social media and at them. You also want to make sure that you're sending them pictures. One thing, and I didn't make a slide about this, but it's important, is when you're getting your sponsorship information from them, make sure to have who the contact person is. But a good thing to do is when you're sharing something on social media and interacting with your sponsors, which you should always do unless they're not on there. Send them emails too. So when you have your robot and your t-shirts done, send them an email with pictures so that it can say, hey, look, we got our pictures of our robot and this is what you got. It can be it could be an email that you're sending to all of them, BCC. That's fine. But just because the person who's getting the email might be the person that makes the decision based on money, they might not have any idea that you posted anything on social media, unless the social media person tells them, hey, that team that we sponsored, they posted XYZ. So you just want to make sure to cover all your bases. It seems like a lot of work, but really sending an email, if you've got the pictures taken that you're posting anyways, just send out an email. Let's see. I started rambling. Okay, so this goes to my spreadsheet, which honestly, you will be lost without it once you have it, I promise. All right, some things to consider is times are changing. So value for company is different now than it used to be. So some companies really, really value the online interaction, and for their brand reputation and their online reputation, they really want people to see that they're interacting with this team that they sponsor and support, and there's really nothing more valuable to them. For a smaller shop, like we discussed in the beginning, a certificate might be better for them. You just never know. So just kind of figure out It's something that's constantly changing, and it does take a little work, but you're getting money for it. Um, Figure out what will be enticing for the company and if there's a unique partnership opportunity. One thing, and this does not apply this year at all, but in normal times, it's always good to ask if the company has any kind of employee events that maybe they might want you to do a robot demo at. That's always good exposure. You might get some new mentors that way. You might find out about an employee that lives in a town that doesn't have a team and maybe they want to start one and you can help with that. But anytime that you can have a demo somewhere, that's obviously great. You can invite this is another thing that doesn't apply right now, but invite sponsors to your shop. Invite sponsors for robot demos. You can ask if you want to go do a robot demo just at their site, even without an event. And make sure to invite your sponsors as VIPs to your events. And I can tell you, not many teams do this. I can tell you that because it's usually me or one of the other senior mentors who would be handling the invite list. So invite your sponsors to competitions. This wouldn't be happening this year. Hopefully, it'll be happening next year, but just make sure. And if you have questions about that, just contact me. We always have a VIP list at a competition. So even if they don't show up, at least you invited them. Pandemic plans, it turns out that we do need those. So moving forward, I think we'll all have them. So right now it could be intimidating. You could feel like, well, I don't really want to reach out to my current sponsors. I don't know what to say. We don't really have any concrete plans, but I assure you reaching out to them is better than not reaching out to them because you can bet that if there's other organizations that need their money, they're reaching out to them. So don't go silent. Send them an email. Ask them about how they're doing. Ask them, I jumped ahead here. Ask them about how they're doing. If they have any needs that you can help with, maybe they'll be one of the companies that they're wearing masks still and they need the mask clips that you can make them on your 3D printer. Or maybe they need some help setting up virtual workshops or something. You really never know what kind of uses a company might have for a group of really smart and helpful teenagers to help them out. So ask. Update them regularly though. Tell them about FIRST's plan. Tell them about the plan for any FIRST. Tell them that you'll keep them updated as things change. Um, this is also an essential time to share community outreach efforts. If you're still able to interact with your community right now, you're still doing, make sure to tell them because it's just their way. Stay at the top of their mind. You're not asking them for anything yet, but stay on track. Don't delay in sending out your sponsorship packages. If you have a time that you usually send them out, send them out. Don't wait. And adapt. Think about and offer virtual opportunities. So, if you're not going to be having events, if you already know you're not going to be able to go to events, it's okay. Maybe you can ask of them. Get creative. Maybe you can offer. If your team is meeting virtually on Zoom, maybe you ask them if they want to sponsor a Zoom meeting, and then that's something you figure out how to do. But just sit down with your team and talk about it and think about different ways that you can engage with your sponsors virtually. But definitely talk to your students because they have great ideas about things that you can do virtually and offer. And I think you'll find that a lot of them have value. Some reminders. Be sure, like we just said, to communicate about your season's plans during COVID. So don't leave your sponsors sitting in the dark wondering if there's going to be a robotics season or if the robotics team that they sponsor is meeting. Tell them what's going on. You have enough information at this point to send them something. You do not want to just lose communication, though. Find new ways to provide value during COVID. We went over that just recently. Stay in touch year round. So you definitely want to, there's always downtime, in the middle of the summer, you might not email anything, but if that's when you do your community outreach, send out little emails, little newsletters, just telling them what you're doing so they don't forget about you. That's a great way to make sure that you stay up to date with your contacts at companies. So if you only reach out once a year when you're asking for money, if somebody has left a company and you have to build a relationship with a new contact there. That's harder when you're only just reaching out to them for the first time to ask for money. So if you send something out bi-monthly or every now and then, it's good. Send newsletters about successes. That's the perfect way to stay in touch yearly, right? And ask every company that you can. One more thing. This is something that I, as a judge and a judge advisor, have seen get overlooked often. I think a lot of teams just don't stop and think about the fact that this is important to judges, but having a good sponsor program and having clear sponsorship relationships and plans is really the biggest key to a sustainable team. And sustainability is one of the biggest things that judges care about, particularly chairman's judges, but I mean all of them, especially if you're talking, to um, if you're speaking about your business plan or anything really. So judges care about sustainability, and having a solid relationship with your sponsors and a plan to get more sponsors, that's all about sustainability. So make sure that you're talking about this to judges and that it's in your written essays and submissions, and that each of your students can talk to judges about sponsors and what you do for them. It's important, I promise. It never happens. And that's it. If you have any questions, I know I have a couple of questions here that I'll ask. If I would have read them during the presentation, I know I would have gotten totally derailed. So I'll answer these, and I'll leave this slide up so that if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'm always available to ask questions and help out, no matter what state you're in. So, let's see. Should I have one sponsorship package for every sponsor, or can I tailor it to each sponsor? It's a good question. I would say that getting started, it's probably easier to just build one sponsorship package, um, because it can be a daunting task. Even though, like I said, there's templates out there. But I think that if it's something that's new for you, develop a base template, and that's the one that you use for everything. And then if you're going after a sponsor that's maybe a little special to you, maybe you're really hoping to get this sponsor or a particular item. Maybe you're writing to get a 3D printer donated and you want to just take that template and adjust it. So I would say have one that's your base template. And then if you need to customize it to something that you're working towards specifically, absolutely do that. Um, and then as you grow your sponsor program and you want to say maybe you have one that's the sponsorship package for monetary donations, and maybe you have one that's for material donations. But I think that you should always offer them more than one option. So you might really want a 3D printer from a company, but you should always offer them to give you money too, because what if they don't want to give you a 3D printer, but they want to support you? So you don't want them to be yes or no. There should be another option in there, if that makes sense. What are some sponsor benefits that sponsors really want? Is the logo on my robot more important than a social media post? So that differs greatly. And it does not hurt also to send out, and this is something I actually just had brought to my attention a couple of months ago, and I think is really cool. It's always okay to send out a poll to to people that you already are sponsored by and ask them. Think of all the things that you currently offer, and then things that maybe you're considering offering, and have them tell you what they think is most important. If you see one that everybody clearly finds a lot of value in, you want to keep that. Um, but that's why having the customizable plan can really work. Just as an example, there's a team that I know that is sponsored by a small Italian restaurant. And that restaurant does not have social media. I think they have a Facebook page that hasn't been active since like 2011. Um, they don't have Twitter, don't have Instagram. So they don't benefit from social media posts. I would say they would benefit from social media posts, and that's the kind of business that should maybe consider it, but we're not really here to change a business's plan. Maybe you can talk to them and tell them about it, and if they're open to it and they see an increase in business, that would be great. But for every team, that's not a good route to go. So I would say um, sponsor benefits that really matter, it really differs depending on the company. So for big companies that really there's an opportunity for them, especially when you think about tech companies or tool companies, 3D printers, when they know that their logo is gonna be on a robot that's competing in front of a bunch of people that is their target market, that's absolutely valuable. But I do think that some of the other things that teams used to provide might be losing steam, or might be better for small businesses. And that's something to consider. So when you have your sponsorship plan, maybe consider that small local businesses, they're going to benefit from different things than a large corporation, where I guarantee that a large corporation, what they're really after is the social media posts. And if you write, I know a lot of teams now write, maybe they'll give one blog post to a sponsor. So they're really after the online interactions, the online engagement, where a local business would probably be more after maybe T-shirts, certificates to hang in their shop, stuff like that. When during the year should we approach sponsors? Are they more likely to have money available at a certain time of year? So different people will tell you different things. As for me, we always have more money available in February. Um, It depends. I say it depends, and I would say that since it depends greatly, with different businesses, it doesn't hurt to reach out twice a year. So maybe, have different times of year that you approach, or and I've had this happen to me as a donor, ask them when is the best time of year to reach out to you, because often you'll hear initially, "Oh, we've already hit our limit for this year." So the sooner that you ask in the fiscal year, the better. And also keep track of that. So you can go back to your little Google Drive and you could type in a note. Make sure to ask for this money before March or before whatever, and you can put notes in there, and and that way you don't miss it. Um, but that is important to do, and that's a good question. Um, it there really is no bad time to ask for money. Um, I would say the sooner the better, though, because people are going to start sending out their sponsorship packages. I mean, they come all the time. I, as a business development manager, usually get the most of them in between the end of January and mid March. So the sooner that you can send it out, then the better. And then if you didn't get it from a certain company and you want to try sending out maybe 6, 7 months later and see what happens, then you can do that too. Any advice on tiers of sponsorship? Should we keep the best benefits on high tiers? If so, how high? Okay, so this is where it can get a little tricky, and I'm 1,000% happy to talk about this offline with you as well. So if you wherever the question came from, if you want to email me, um, keep the best benefits on high tiers. Absolutely. Um, you you want to make sure that there's a clear reason for somebody to always go the next step from what they initially planned. Um, you don't want somebody to be looking at your table and notice that, for an extra $50, they get five extra things. So you want there to be a clear divide, and it requires some thought. There's some excellent samples online, which is a great place to start. It can be incredibly frustrating to on your own. I'd be happy to talk about offline. I have a lot of samples that I actually have and share with people. I make them readily available. Now, as for how high, a lot of people, when they first start building sponsorship packages or first start doing this, are really bashful about how much money they're going to ask for. So I will say that when you're sitting down and you're doing your sponsorship package and you set what you think is the high tier, if you have any doubts and you think that you might be asking too much, I think you should probably go up a little bit more, because usually the people that think that they're asking for too much, you're probably not asking for enough. I've seen them range anywhere, typically from $500 being the low starting point, from 500 to say 10,000 to 5,000. So it really depends on how and remember, you're always going to offer them another opportunity or another. They can always reach out to you and talk to you about a customized plan. So they're not going to feel like they're completely locked into this. But if you start at about 500 and then you can go up to 10, 15, there might be teams out there that are saying, what is she talking about? We have a high of 20 or 30. But it's a good starting point. And you're probably going to get more of the in between 1 to 5,000 from your local places. If you wanted to reach out to me and ask me, again, happy to answer. Let's see. Do we need a dedicated group or mentor to lead this? It seems like a lot of work. Or are there ways to do it on a smaller team? Okay. So you should have a dedicated group, uh, maybe a mentor and a couple students that work on it. It does seem like a lot of work. However, it's a lot of work to just set it up the first time. And when I say a lot of work, I use that loosely because it's really just setting up a Google Drive, having your forms in place, a lot of data entry type of stuff. Once you get going with it, it could fall in different hands. So if you have a social media team, one of the great things to do is, and I'm going to actually send out a document after that has, or I'll make it available, that has a checklist. So one of the great things to do is make sure that your media team has a list of your sponsors and their social media accounts and handles so that at competitions they can just send shout outs, and that comes very natural. So it'll come very natural to your media team if they're doing their job, that they can just take a picture. Maybe it's just a picture of your robot or a t-shirt or your team and saying, hey, here we are, we're ready to compete, it's day one, thanks for all your support at Lockheed Martin. Um, and just doing little things like that provides value. But it takes effort to be consistent and to make sure that you're keeping records. So that is something that a mentor should be overseeing. Ways to do it on a smaller team. I would say that's where the sustainability comes in and making sure that you have somebody in place that if it's only one person that's doing it, making sure that they have it accessible to everybody for when they leave. And when that person leaves, it's not just all that information's going with them. But ways to do it on a smaller team is to just have everything set up ahead of time. So it's much easier to spend a couple of days creating your sponsor package, creating your Google Drive, and all your record keeping um, information, and having that all set up. And it's much easier getting all of that done in a couple days work, and then just carrying on. Then it becomes okay. We're going to send an email out to everybody. It's not like you have to do it all the time. Send out an email every 3 months telling them what's going on when it's not competition season. And then when it's competition season, if you have a newsletter, send it. If you compete at a competition and you do really well or win an award, send it. So whoever handles the media and communication on your team can help with the sponsor communication and make it a little easier if they communicate with, if it's a mentor uh, that does all the sponsorship stuff, and then you have a different mentor that does media and communication. You could just make sure they have a relationship there. But there are ways to make it easier for yourself. Number one, I would say set up reminders. So even if you just set up reminders on your phone that says, send sponsor email, and set it up before you get to build season. Everything you do and plan in life should be before build season and before competition season, so that you'll get a reminder saying, I got to send an email to these people. And to the best of your ability, make sure that you are doing email blasts. So you're not sitting and typing out a bunch of different handcrafted emails specific to the sponsor. Type up a little. Have your students type up a little blurb about what they're doing this week in the shop and how their competition went, or what they're doing in the community and how they're meeting virtually during COVID now. And then they just give it to you, and you send it out to all of your sponsors at once, and it takes just a couple minutes. So there are some easier ways to handle things. It is good if you have a mentor or a parent, and if a parent's doing it, then just make sure that when their child's ready to leave, that you have that access to the folder, so that it goes back to being sustainable. And I think that was my last question. Um, I do feel like all of those questions I could easily have rattled on about for longer. Number one, and number two, I feel like I could be more helpful to specific teams and communities. So please reach out to me if you have any questions or want specific help. And that's it. Thank you guys, and please reach out to me if I can help you with anything.